Got 1 minute, fellas. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of December 3rd, 2020. My name is Gary Hirsch and I'm the chairperson of the commission. The Planning Commission is a citizen body appointed by the City Council. The commission is empowered to make final decisions on certain matters, with those being appealable to City Council. On other matters, the commission acts in an advisory role to the council, with the council making the final decision. You will have an opportunity to address the commission during the public hearing portion of the meeting, and your testimony is very much appreciated and encouraged. The commission acts from a written agenda. You will need to fill out a yellow speaker card and give it to city staff if you wish to speak on an item this evening. Copies of the agenda and the speaker cards are located on the table just outside the entrance to the Civic Center. At this time, I'll ask you to silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. Thank you. There are 7 members appointed to the Planning Commission. At this time, I'll ask the commissioners to introduce themselves and state the district they are representing, starting from my far right.
I'm Ed Nyberg, representing the Cholla District.
Good evening, I'm Vern Crow, representing Cactus.
Good evening, I'm Al Lennox, Vice Chair, representing the Barrow District.
Good evening, I'm Rick Harper, I represent the Saguaro District.
Warren Wilfong, Ocotillo District.
Martin Nowakowski, Yucca District.
And I am Gary Hirsch, a resident of the Cactus District, a mayoral appointee representing the city at large. The Planning Commission, let the record reflect that all members of the Planning Commission are present this evening. The Planning Commission receives staff assistance and guidance from the Planning Division and the City Attorney's Office. Ms. Collins, would you please introduce city staff that are present this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Diana Figueroa, our management assistant, is at the table with me. To my right is Jim Gruber. He is our senior assistant city attorney. Alex Lerma to my left is a planner on our staff, and Edward Vigil in the audience is also a planner on my staff. They will both be presenting cases this evening. And my name is Lisa Collins. I'm the Interim Development Services Director and the Planning Administrator. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience this evening that wishes to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Because this item may not be on tonight's agenda, the Commission cannot take action this evening. However, it could be added to a future agenda. Anyone here this evening that would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. This evening we have minutes for the Planning Commission regular meeting of October 1st. Commissioners, is there a motion?
So
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the Planning Commission regular meeting minutes of October 1st, 2020. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. We also have minutes of the Planning Commission regular meeting of November 5th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and approval, and a second for approval of the Planning Commission regular meeting minutes of November 5th, 2020. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Ms. Collins, do we have any withdrawals or continuances this evening?
No, Mr. Chairman, we do not.
Okay, we'll move on to our public hearing items. I believe we have 3 for this evening. The first being CA Ventures Glendale 303 rezoning application ZON 20-6. Excuse me, 16. Alejandro Lerma presenting the case.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
You know, there is a button on the seat, too, that'll blow you into the other room, so be careful which one you push.
Again, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Before you have an item. CA Ventures Glendale 303, a zoning case 20-16. The applicant is requesting a zone change from the existing PAD to a planned area development to allow mixed-use development and modifications to current development standards. The site is approximately 100 acres. It is located within the Yucca district. Applicant is Michael Bushbacher on behalf of Hunter Engineering, representing the property owner, Glendale 303 Holdings, LLC. Property is located on the northwest corner, Loop 303 and Glendale Avenue. There's a visual relation between City Hall is that and project site. Site is, has a general plan land use designation of a regional mixed use. Currently, the property is, has a zoning classification of PAD. It is located in an area where there's both city property and unincorporated properties to the west and to the north. Those properties that are within city limits are also zoned planned area development. Those properties to the south and to the west, adjacent to Loop 303. Here's an aerial of the property. Property is currently vacant. Historically, the site has been used for agriculture purposes. Those properties to the north, to the south, and to the east, across Loop 303 are also vacant, also used for agriculture purposes. Property to the west is unincorporated subdivision within Maricopa County, Romela of Arizona Grapefruit Unit Subdivision. Previously, this property was an item that came before Planning Commission and City Council as case number AN 219. It was an annexation case. The property received annexation with a like zoning of planned area development. Property owner has applied and is requesting a zone change to amend the current development standards of the property. As you can see here, here's a comparison of the existing PAD and into development standards and those modifications that he's requesting. Some of the items that he's requesting is reduction in setbacks. As you can see, currently the property calls out for a front building setback of 20 feet. Property owners requesting a reduction in that to 15 feet. Rear property setback 25 feet. Property owners requesting a reduction in setback to 20 feet. Side setbacks, per current development standards, there is none. He's requesting 60 feet. Street side setbacks remaining the same, 25 feet. Keep in mind that because the property has, or the property owner is requesting a reduction in setbacks, doesn't mean that these buildings will be at that point. Keep in mind, he has to abide by landscaping requirements, parking, and also driving aisles, so this would substantially push the building a lot further back than the development standards state right here. Maximum building heights are going from 40 feet to 85 feet, which is an additional 15 feet for any roof-mounted equipment. Maximum floor area, currently the property doesn't have a maximum floor area ratio. It has a lot coverage. He's requesting a modification in that to floor area ratio of 0.5. He's asking for a reduction in parking ratios as well. sign standards. Currently, the property isn't permitted to have freeway pylon signs. He's asking for entitlements for that. And also entitlements for multi-tenant pylon signs. Currently, the property doesn't have, isn't permitted to have some. And freeway monument signs, he's asking for an increase in height and square footage. Landscaping buffers, where currently the development standards don't call out for landscaping buffers, he's requesting a 5-foot landscaping buffer in those areas where he doesn't have to provide an 8-foot screen wall, meaning the loading areas. And perimeter landscape setback is going to be reduced from 20 to 15 feet. Applicant has reached out and done the citizens outreach, has completed his citizens outreach. A virtual neighborhood meeting was conducted on October 21st, 2020. The site was posted November 13th, advertised November 12th, and hearing cards were sent out November 13th. The citizens' participation final report was included within the staff report that the commissioners received. A detailed description of virtual neighborhood meeting and the virtual outcome of that is within that packet. Staff determines that the application, the PAD rezoning, is appropriate for the zoning designation for the proposed mixed land use development at this location. The proposed PAD includes a list of permitted uses that are compatible with the surrounding area. To the south and to the east of the subject property are similar uses with similar development standards. Staff has incorporated necessary stipulations for the public safety mitigation. Through our findings, staff has have the following outcomes. The application is consistent with the policies, objectives of the general plan. The project furthers the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of the city of Glendale. And the project is compatible, again, with the surrounding planned area development projects along the 303. Staff recommends that staff makes a recommendation to approve zoning case 20-16 with the following stipulations. Stipulation number 1, the development shall be in substantial conformance with CA Ventures Glendale 303 PAD development narrative dated November 25th, 2020. Number 2, on Glendale Avenue, the developer shall provide an additional 10-foot of right-of-way to obtain 65 feet of half-street right-of-way. Number 3, site driveway deceleration turning lanes requirements are pending results of the traffic impact study and shall be addressed as part of the design review. Number 4, minimum of 6-foot detached sidewalk will be required on Glendale Avenue along the property frontage. And number 5, digital billboards and digital display as proposed in the PAD are expressly not permitted per current zoning ordinance regulations, which cannot be amended through the PAD, except that the digital billboard shall be permitted in an ordinance or amended at the future date that would allow them to pertain to the planned area development. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this concludes my presentation. The applicant is here. The chair commissions have any questions for him or for myself?
Thank you, Mr. Verma. Commissioners, do we have any questions? I'll lean in a little tighter. Any questions for Mr. Verma? Okay, the chair has a couple of questions. The electronic billboard, I just want to make sure that I understand the language on that. So let's go back to stipulation number 5. Digital billboards and digital display as proposed in the PAD are expressly not permitted per current zoning ordinance regulations, which cannot be amended through a PAD. except that digital billboards shall be permitted if ordinances are amended at a future date that would allow them as proposed. So, could we get the plain English version of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will take responsibility for that because I wrote that on
I thought
previous,
that was Mr. Gruber's work.
previous cases. Well, I'm complimented. Thank you that you would think that. In any case, we've had several cases along the 303 that have proposed billboards, and indeed our current ordinance in the PAD section says that you can amend all sorts of development standards, as you can see. That's the point of that district, but it does not allow someone to amend it to the extent that they have billboards. When the billboard ordinance was written, it was very specific to the areas where it's allowed. Now, in the county, billboards are allowed, so properties that have received permission in the county and then annexed in have them, so you will see them come up. So the second part of it is we're in the midst of a zoning ordinance rewrite, as you know, and the sign ordinance and the PAD, everything will be, rewritten. And so the point of this condition was that should we do an ordinance amendment that would have otherwise allowed these, if it said something like the PAD can amend them or billboards are allowed along the 303 or something like that, we didn't want to have to bring the PAD back specifically for that. So this allows them to move forward if there's a change that would allow a PAD, either a PAD to amend billboards, or if the billboard section was amended to allow them along the 303. They're allowed primarily in the along the 101 around Westgate. That's really the only place they are now. And as I understand it, when the ordinance was written, there was just, they weren't thinking about development along the 303. It was just something in the future that wasn't considered. I hope that helps.
It does, the rewrite, is that going to be subject to Planning Commission review, or is that going to be done administratively and go right to council? How's that, do you know how that, at the end game of that, is going to work?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the zoning ordinance, because it is considered an ordinance, will come to the Planning Commission for a recommendation and then on to the City Council for a decision. We may be bringing that in pieces. I believe maybe the parking section will come first, but the preferred way is to do it comprehensively because the different sections interact with each other, but you will see it either in pieces or in whole, but you will see everything that the council sees.
Well, I appreciate that. I was asking specifically to the digital billboard question because digital billboard to me is like showing a crucifix to a vampire. I don't really like that, so I'm glad that it'll come back to the commission and they'll have an opportunity to depart our wisdom to council before they make any final ordinance change. Okay, commissioners, any other? All right. Would the applicant or applicant's representative like to come forward? And if you would, sir, state your name and address for the record, please.
Chair and Commissioners, is that better? I'm Mike Bushbacher with Hunter Engineering,
I thought that was you.
and my address is 10475 East 74th Street, and Scottsdale, Arizona 85260. Thank you for hearing this tonight. We appreciate your efforts and your review. We believe that we're helping to correct and improve the zoning that was passed on through the annexation process to make this property similar to others on the other side of the freeway and have kind of similar conditions to promote that same sort of development. So this is, in effect, just kind of helping to level the playing field a little bit and provide some standards in this PAD versus the one that's in place right now. So again, I thank you for your time and efforts in reviewing this.
Commissioners, any questions? Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Okay, with that, we will open the public hearing portion for ZON 20-16. I have 0 speaker cards. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing none, the chair will now close the public hearing on ZON 20-16. Commissioners will entertain a motion prior to discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Nyberg.
I would move approval of ZON-16, subject to the stipulations contained in the staff report.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second for approval of ZON 20-16, CA Ventures Glendale 303 rezoning application.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Crowe.
I think it's ZON 20-.
I beg your pardon, it is ZON 20-16. And any discussion? Commissioner Nowakowski.
One quick question to staff. I noticed that the area adjacent to Cotton Lane, is that in Maricopa County? I was just wondering if that wasn't part of the decision-making to annex into Glendale?
Sorry about that. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, are you referring to the subdivision?
Is it a subdivision? I couldn't tell. It just says Maricopa County right there.
Oh, that piece right there? Yeah, that's part of the county.
So when a developer wants to develop property, they choose to annex at that time? Is that the process? I'm just wondering, because some interesting stuff can be developed around that if it's in the county. That's all I was inquiring about.
The property owner can either choose to develop within the county. We're talking about specifically that part of the property. They could either decide to annex into or stay within the county and develop within the county development standards. Obviously, they will work with the county and their department. If they choose to build within the city of Glendale, they will have to annex in and receive entitlements for that property.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Very well, then the chair will now conduct a roll call vote for CA Ventures Glendale 303 rezoning application ZON 20-16. Commissioner Nyberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Crowe.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lennox.
Aye.
Commissioner Harper.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilfong.
Aye.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion has passed. Mr. Gruber, what are the next steps in the process?
Chair, members of the commission, your action with respect to case number ZON 20-16 is not final. Your recommendation will be forwarded to the City Council for further consideration.
Thank you. We'll now move on to Allen Ranches Preliminary Plat PP 20-02. Mr. Vigil presenting for the city.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Edward Vigil, planner with the City of Glendale. As you stated, I am introducing the preliminary plat for the Allen Ranches. So the applicant on this application is Zach Hilgard of Hilgard Wilson, and the request is a preliminary plat approval for a 760-lot single-family residential subdivision on approximately 260 acres. So this is a vicinity map showing the relationship between the proposed project and the City of Glendale. Next, we have the zoning map. Currently, the zoning for this property is planned area development, which was approved June 23rd, 2020 of this year. Next, we have a preliminary site plan that was approved through that rezoning in June 23rd, 2020. And the general plan shows this designation as medium-density residential, 2.5 dwelling units per acre to 3.5 dwelling units per acre. So the applicant is proposing 3.04 dwelling units per acre, which falls within this density. This is a depiction of the preliminary plat brought before you for approval. So on this preliminary plat, down from the north of Bethany Home Road, there is a collector, a proposed collector, that goes all the way down the middle, down to Camelback Road. The properties to the west of that collector road will have private streets and will be gated. And the properties to the east will not be private streets. Those will be public and will not be gated. So this is a preliminary site plan showing the variety of different sizes and zoning districts. What was approved is the R1-4 zoning district, R1-6, and R1-8, a total of 760 lots. So these are the amended development standards for the R1-4 zoning district. These are the development standards for the R1-6 zoning district. These are the development standards for the R1-8 zoning district. So it's important to mention that the minimum lot sizes are just that, minimum lot sizes shown on these development standards. However, the applicant is proposing slightly larger lots on almost all of those lots. So public involvement, the citizen participation plan was implemented with the zoning case of 20-06, which was approved June 23rd, 2020. For the preliminary plat, this was noticed and advertised on November 12th, 2020. The site was posted on November 6th, and hearing notices were mailed out on November 13th. We have had, I think, 3 or 4 emails from nearby property owners with their statements regarding the proposal, which I believe you have received. With that, the recommendation from the Planning Department is that the Planning Commission approve the preliminary plat subject to the 2 following stipulations. Number 1 is that the development shall be in conformance with the revised Allen Ranches PAD, which was approved June 23rd, 2020. And number 2, the development shall be in conformance with the Allen Ranches preliminary plat narrative dated November 2nd, 2020. And Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that concludes my presentation for the preliminary plat for Allen Ranches. If you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Mr. Vigil. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Wilfong.
Yeah, I'm lost on how the R1-4s got in there. Did council approve that? The smaller lots?
Yes, they approved 4,000 square feet minimum lot size for
Okay,
R1-4.
so when I get on the Maricopa County Assessor, and if I look in the general plan here, there's a conflict here. In the Maricopa County Assessor maps, every lot that is a developed area is not even less than 8,000 square feet. Now you're going to throw a 4,000 square foot house. This will diminish the values of these properties. In the general plan, it clearly states, now I'm assuming, we'll go by this, the city shall reserve areas in appropriate location for low-density custom housing. I would consider this area as an appropriate area since most housing in that area are low density and it's custom housing. In the section right here, HE 27, the city should expand its housing stock by encouraging developers to provide executive homes, custom homes, large site homes, and other similar products. we've seen countless developments of 4,000 square foot lots. And this is not the appropriate area for a 4,000 square foot lot. It's not even an appropriate area for a 6,000 square foot lot. And if we have the opportunity, we should put a stipulation in place that no lot should be less than 8,000 feet. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilfong. Commissioner Crowe.
Yeah, to kind of fill in on that, there is a, I don't know, I guess it's a law, state law that says that if the county approves a certain type of lot and configuration and so on and so forth, once it's brought into the city, they're compelled to stick as close to that as possible. And going from 8,000 to 4,000 doesn't seem to be conducive to sticking as close to that as you can. Does it to you?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Crowe, if I could step in here for a second. So
Thank you.
when this was annexed into the city, they did come in under like zoning because that is the state law. They have to do that. They also processed a zoning application that changed that. So they took the like zoning that was brought in and then also processed a PAD, a planned area development, that amended the lot sizes, the number of lots. I don't recall specifically what it was in the county, and then shifted some things around to increase the area of the industrial, which is just to the east of the residential lots. So, you know, this is the preliminary plat that I think follows, I know it follows specifically what was approved in the zoning case. So at the time of zoning, that discussion occurred, and so that's what they're required to follow. So that's what the preliminary plat reflects. I hope that explains it a little bit.
Well, that tracks the progress of how we got here from there.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think we're going to see more and more of this because the demand out there is for this size lot. And I know a lot of us don't really like to see the smaller lots, but I think that is getting to be the demand out there from the type of folks that are buying these lots. I mean, they're not our age, they're usually mid to younger. And that's the demand, unfortunately.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Crowe, I'd just like to add one more thing. Some of the graphics that were shown during the zoning process, there's a development out by the high school that is really almost identical to the density and the configurations that are proposed here. So, and that's over along Perryville Road, I believe. So you're correct, there is a demand for this now.
Commissioners, any additional questions? Okay, I have a question, Ms. Collins. Refresh my memory. The western parcels of Allen Ranch, I seem to remember there was quite a bit of discussion about portions were going to be city-maintained streets and portions were going to be privately maintained, and there was some relationship with some being gated and not being gated and so forth. And it was during that discussion that City Council approved the 4,000-foot lot, if I'm not mistaken. Is that kind of right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. There was discussion during the council hearing about whether the portions would be gated or not, and I believe that the discussion kind of ended on the fact that that determination is made at the time of preliminary plat, and unless the council wanted to, you know, stipulate that, which they didn't, so they kind of left it up to the home builder and the applicant to determine if any would be private streets. And so that was a determination that they made, and yeah, it was based on some lot sizes. I don't know if Mr. Vigil has anything additional he wants to add or not.
So the council did stipulate on the June 23rd zoning case approval that number 4, the residential streets to the west of the north-south collector street must be private streets.
Okay, and that was the meeting where, because I didn't remember it passing through the commission here at 4,000 foot, and maybe did they, I don't recall if they modified it during that June 23rd meeting, or?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think so. I don't think that the plan changed, but thank you for the correction, Mr. Vigil, that they did stipulate it. I couldn't recall whether they did. There was so much discussion back and forth.
Right, it was a long meeting, I recall.
Yeah, it was. But I do think that the plan that you all saw and recommended on is what landed
Okay,
with
not
the council.
dissimilar to what we're seeing tonight. So in any event, Mr. Vigil, it's a fair statement to say that this preliminary plat is in fact in compliance with the approved zoning.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Harper.
Just a clarification. So where they are saying that it will be, the streets will be maintained privately, is that even if it's not a gated community?
I believe I spoke with the applicant this afternoon, and the private streets will be gated, is my understanding.
So they're saying that what we're looking at here, where they say it's streets are privately maintained, that will definitely be a gated area.
I can't answer for definitely, but the applicant did tell me that they would be gated west
right.
of the collector street, yes.
But Commissioner Harper, as I recall, that was not included in the stipulation voted on by council, the issue of gated or not gated. It was simply a matter of
That's the way I remember it.
That's correct. The stipulation is
physical
just,
location of where the streets were.
I think they wanted to make it the whole area privately maintained streets.
well,
one
they
time.
stipulated west of the north-south collector street be private. There is no stipulation that they must be gated.
Any additional questions, comments, commissioners? Okay. Is there an applicant representative here this evening like to speak on this
Yes, there
item?
is.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Vigil.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Sure to hit that right button when you're up there.
Good evening, Zach Hilgart with Hilgart Wilson, 2141 East Highland, 85028, 85016 rather. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Really nothing to add beyond Mr. Vigil's presentation and what Ms. Collins has stated. The roads west of the collector street will be gated is the plan. You're right, that was not voted on by council, but that is the plan right now moving forward. And the 4,000 square foot lots are all on the eastern boundary of the job, abutting the industrial zone property. So we feel that provides a good buffer between the industrial and some of the larger lots. Nothing to add beyond that. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments? Yeah, I appreciate the clarification on your voluntary implementation of gated, and now I do recall the discussion about the 4,000-foot lots being to the east, adjacent or abutting the commercial.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, commissioners, any questions? All right, well, we appreciate you coming in. Thank you, sir. Okay, the chair will now open the public meeting on Allen Ranch's preliminary plat PP 20-02. I have no speaker cards. Anyone here this evening like to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, the chair will now close the public hearing on Allen Ranch's preliminary plat PP 20-02. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve PP 20-02, subject to the stipulations.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Support.
We have a motion and a second for approval of Allen Ranch's preliminary plat PP 20-02 with the two staff recommended stipulations. Any discussion? Okay, the chair will now conduct a roll call vote, beginning on my far right. Commissioner Nyberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Crow,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lennox,
Aye.
Commissioner Harper,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilfong,
Nay.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion has passed. Mr. Gruber, what are the next steps in the process?
Chair and members of the commission, your action with respect to case number PP 20-02 is final, subject to a written appeal received within 15 days.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our final public hearing item this evening, Group Homes Text Amendment ZTA 20-01. And Ms. Collins is making the presentation.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So this is the zoning text amendment for group homes ZTA 20-01, and you were briefed on this last month. It is the result of a complaint that we received from HUD. So again, a group home is defined in the city of Glendale as a dwelling shared as a primary residence by at least 6 but not more than 10 handicapped or disabled persons. In order for a group home to be permitted, there is a distance requirement of a quarter mile, which is 1,320 feet between each group home. So the text amendment is to allow an applicant to apply to the Board of Adjustment for an exception to the spacing requirements for a disability accommodation. And just to be clear, this would be handled much like a variance from our zoning ordinance. So these requests would not come to the Planning Commission or the City Council. They'd be handled by the Board of Adjustment, who really sits as judges. It's like a quasi-judicial board that doesn't really deal with land use. They deal with exceptions to the code for particular reasons. So again, the purpose for this request is based on a complaint that was received from the Housing and Urban Development Department regarding the city's ordinance that does require that separation, and we currently don't have a specified process in place for relief from that requirement. Although, like I said, it could be processed through the Board of Adjustment, but this adds some clarity and specificity as to what the board would be doing. So based on that complaint and advice from our legal department, the City Council did direct the staff to draft this ordinance for disability accommodation. So I'm going to go through this. It's a little lengthy. So a disability accommodation from a development standard or separation requirement shall not be authorized unless the Board of Adjustment shall find upon sufficient evidence all of the following. So the requested accommodation is requested by or on behalf of one or more of the individuals with a disability protected under federal and Arizona fair housing laws, and that the requested accommodation is necessary to afford an individual with a disability equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling. The standard or requirement unduly restricts the opportunity for a person with a disability from finding adequate housing within the city of Glendale, and that the requested accommodation does not fundamentally alter the nature and purpose of the zoning ordinance of the city of Glendale, and the requested accommodation will not impose an undue financial or administrative burden on the city, as undue financial or administrative burden is defined in federal and Arizona fair housing laws and interpretive case law. And that also the profitability or financial hardship of the owner, service provider of a facility shall not be considered in determining whether to grant a disability accommodation. The requested accommodation must comply with all applicable building and fire codes. And the requested accommodation must not, under the specific facts of the application, result in a direct threat to the health or safety of other individuals or substantial physical change to the property of others. That the requested accommodation shall require submittal of an application, including the required fee as published in the city's fee schedule, and comply with the public notification requirements. So with that, the staff is recommending that the commission pass this text amendment, which again, in fact, deals with the separation requirements for group homes. It doesn't deal with anything else. It doesn't alter anything else with group homes. Most cities have some type of disability or reasonable accommodation standard. There are 3 cities that specifically call it out: Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Paradise Valley. On the west and some of the western cities, it's called out generally in the ordinance. I think that the positive portion of this is that it gives specific direction to the Board of Adjustment should they need to consider this request. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Commissioners, questions? Comment? Okay, the chair has a question. Under item 1, disability accommodation, item B, the profitability or the financial hardship of the owner/service provider of a facility shall not be considered in determining whether to grant a disability accommodation. What's the origin of that language?
Mr. Chairman, this is actually language that was that is in another city's ordinance. I believe it very closely replicates the city of Scottsdale, and our goal is to have language that the Housing and Urban Development Department is comfortable with and will approve. This language, though, however, how I believe that it comes into play is when we take cases to the Board of Adjustment, that should never be the reason for granting a variance. And in fact, this would be a type of a variance. So it needs to be based on something that's unique, some special, in this case, some issue that disability related to a person. So it should not really be a function of a financial issue. In addition to that, there shouldn't be any requirements that would also place a financial burden. So it shouldn't be more than would be requested of anyone else. That's part of the reason why we added the condition that we did actually at the end, that all the normal application standards for the Board of Adjustment would be followed, and there would be no other charges, or fees added on to something, to this type of a request.
Okay, well, I appreciate the explanation. Gee, I realize that the disabled, obviously need all the help they can get, but this statement does seem a little punitive, or could be potentially to a property owner or operator, depending on the extent to which the property would have to be modified to accommodate one individual, is why I asked. Okay, well.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add that Really, the only thing that the Board of Adjustment would be looking at is the spacing requirement. They wouldn't be looking at requiring modifications. That would all come under, state and federal law. So they wouldn't have any purview over
Okay, I think
modifications.
that's what I was probing
Okay,
for, because I
I
thought, wow,
apologize,
that,
I didn't understand. Thank you.
Yeah, that puts it out of our hands then. Okay, well, I'm a little more comfortable with that provision. Okay, any additional? Very good. The city is the applicant, so we've heard the presentation. Commissioners, if there's no questions, then we'll open the public hearing on Group Homes Text Amendment ZTA 20-10. The chair has no speaker cards. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak on this item? Please step forward. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak on this item? Thought I saw someone next door. I'm going to give them just a moment.
Mr. Chairman, that was a member of our staff.
Okay, thank you. Then with that, hearing and seeing.
You don't have that?
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Under the disability accommodation, I see on number B, not the, it says where legally required. There's another B, or do I have an additional paper here?
Hey, while you're looking that over, I'm going to go ahead and close out the public hearing portion for Group Homes Text Amendment ZTA 20-01.
Mr. Chairman, yes. So, again, this is being sort of applied into our existing group homes. So A, if you look at the amendment, so A says no group home is located on a lot within 1,320 feet measured by a straight line in any direction. And then the disability accommodation is put in there to say this is how exceptions will be made to that you must have a disability accommodation. Then it goes on with the rest of the existing group home requirements, which is B, where legally required, and then C, no exterior change. So that's not part of the amendment, that's part of the existing code. The only thing that's being changed is the disability accommodation, which would allow a variation from the quarter-mile separation if there was in fact a disability, and that would be reviewed by the Board of Adjustment for their consideration.
Thank you. You okay with that, Commissioner Nowakowski?
Yeah, I was just reading it. It says where legally required, and it has all this, it has to be certified, approved by, registered with, and all this. I would assume that every group home is licensed and that we do require it, not where it's legally required, and that to provide proof to the planning department within 60 days of approval of the planning department. So I don't know, I think that would be reviewed as they be certified.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Nowakowski, there are group homes is kind of a broad term. So the threshold is, when it qualifies as a group home, as determined by state and federal, then it is licensed. But so that's why, again, that's why the language is there that it says, when it's required to be licensed, because it's a broad term and people kind of throw that around, and not all of them do need to be.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, any additional comments or discussion, commissioners? Then the chair will ask for a motion on Group Homes Text Amendment ZTA 20-01.
Chairman,
Commissioner Wilfong.
I move to approve ZTA 20-01 as written.
Second.
We have, and the second was Vice Chair Lennox. Thank you. For the record, the second was Vice Chair Lennox. We have a motion and a second for approval of Group Homes Text Amendment ZTA 20-01. The chair will now conduct a roll call vote. Commissioner Nyberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Crow,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lennox,
Aye.
Commissioner Harper,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilfong,
Aye.
Commissioner Nowakowski,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The motion is passed. Mr. Gruber, what are the next steps in the process for this item?
Chair, members of the commission, your action with respect to case number ZTA 20-01 is not final. Your recommendation will be forwarded to the City Council for further consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Collins, do we have any other business this evening?
No, Mr. Chairman, we do not.
Do we have a planning staff report?
No, Mr. Chairman, we do not.
Thank you. Well, it's with some regret that the chair announces to the commission and to the public that our interim development services director, Ms. Collins, will be leaving us. And it's a fond farewell. We're excited for your new horizons and prospects, but from our standpoint, we're really going to feel the loss, Lisa, and you've just done an absolute terrific job for us. And, you know, personally and professionally, I just couldn't be more grateful. And thank you for everything. Commissioners, comments?
I would like to echo that. Any interaction I've had with Director Collins has been outstanding, easy to work with, very professional, very kind and considerate. I just wish you the best.
Mr. Chair, Lisa, you know, we can always replace titles, but not people. And you're one of the people who, throughout my experience on this commission, has always been honest and kind and understanding in face of, you know, hostility and chaos. You know, you're a steady hand on the wheel, so thank you for that time. And I apologize for those late meetings that I've caused.
Chairman, Lisa,
Commissioner Wilfong.
we've been together for quite a while. We've gone through quite a bit on other committees, too. You have been a great inspiration. I hope you do very well in your future.
I would ditto what everyone else is saying, just it's been a pleasure. If we agreed or not, you were always very professional.
I'd like to say that we're going to miss you, and we don't have anybody to pick on anymore.
There's nothing that has, that I could say new to that, other than just agree with everything that's been said, but I wish you well. Congratulations. Definitely mixed feelings about your departure. We're going to miss you, and good luck.
Thank you. Well said, Commissioners. And Lisa, thank you again. Our next meeting is scheduled for January the 7th, and I'm assuming that that will be 6 p.m. and held here at the Civic Center. And we'll see all of you commissioners back then, and we'll hope to hear from Lisa's New Horizons sometime in the future. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.